Good evening, Philadelphia and national sports fans. As always, man, it's the HRS Late Nights. I'm Tony Cutillo, Heat Ratio Sports. Make sure you're following, make sure you're liking, make sure you're subscribing, make sure you're getting involved in the conversation. Now, I had to be a little late. I mean, listen, if Howie can be late, if Howie and Nick can be late, why can't I be late? Man, we got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. We're gonna break this down from an opinion standpoint, a speculation standpoint. Always, man. I'm watching this press conference, and man, there's so many different things that I think we need to get into. Wrote a poll up on Facebook, had a lot of great comments to interject with. I'll put them live on the show. And as always, man, there's so many different ways to get involved in this program. Okay. If you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on X, you're watching on YouTube, you can comment your little hearts away, which is obviously very, very well received. And as always, man, you can call in. Very simple. Call lines will be open. It's a little simple link that is posted in the chat. All you need to do is click it on your phone and you are good to go. My man, Foods, listen, man. Love the video that you sent me today. I meant to text you back and then I got busy. I'll break it down. I think I'll give you my thoughts, put it that way, but I love it. And I think we definitely have something, and I think it would be pretty cool. So I appreciate you sending it to me, and I apologize that I didn't get right back to you. I got sidetracked today. I was a little busy. I was trying to get done for that presser and take some notes, and so it was fun, man. My man Joe checking in as always says Utley doesn't even have 2,000 hits, no MVP or a Gold Glove. We got say Adam says I think Rollins and Utley should have made the Hall of Fame. They both got a World Series ring. They both were the best in their positions. We're gonna get into all that, man. My man David checking in, my David Roska. So I know he's a baseball guy. So we're gonna talk MLB Hall of Fame. I want to know question. Gary Sheffield, why did he get snubbed? Should Gary Sheffield be in the Hall of Fame? I want to hear, listen, you guys are very intelligent and intellectual baseball people. I want to hear what you have to think. I want to hear what you have to say. Okay? And that's my main thing. I want to hear what you have to say. Now, we also look at this, and we have this horrific news conference that broke today. What in God's name was that? That's what I need to ask about too, because unfortunately, that is what's going on right now in this town. Is everybody's talking about the Eagles, right? And from a national level as well. Everybody's talking about the Eagles. So we have a press conference to break down. We have to, I want to hear what you guys think. What were your odds? I'm going to read. I had some really, really good comments and feedback on the Facebook page, which was great. And just keep an eye out because, listen, I started this thing a little while ago, and I'm going to continue to push this on many different avenues. The Heat Ratio team is growing every week, every day. Different people. I've already talked to a few people about wrestling segments. I'm talking to my man Foods about doing some passionate segments when it comes to Philly sports. Again, want to make this fun and make it a big community. So that's what I'm pushing. And there's going to be a lot of things that come off the pike too. So make sure you support, make sure you're subscribing to YouTube. If you want to know how you support this show and support this network, it's just get onto the YouTube page and hit that like and subscribe. But I'm going to be starting a new Facebook page up. And this is, you know how I am. I'm pretty transparent. I need to get away from, business and personal. And that's not no disrespect to anybody here. But I as I grow this thing bigger and bigger, I don't know what kind of trolls are going to hook up on this page. So I just been using a personal page, and I'm going to be creating a more of a fan page, so to speak. So obviously the Heat Ratio Facebook page will still be legit, but I'm going to create a PR and media sports page. So I'll hit you guys up and make sure you're following it as well. But let's get it right into this. And I'm going to ask this question, man. Is Howie Roseman the new head coach of the Eagles? And I mean this wholeheartedly, okay? I need to understand, is Howie the guy? Because it sure as hell seemed like that in his press conference. I don't know if people agree with me or not. I don't know if people watch the same one, but I'm telling you right now, it sure as hell looked like that Howie Roseman was the head coach of this team. And it obviously we say that word and that phrase all the time. We say corporate mouthpiece, right? We say it all the time, and rightfully so. We say it because we know what that means and we know who that is. And I'm going to be honest with you, man. That press conference, man, that really symbolized to me that Howie is in charge. So if Howie's in charge, how comfortable are you? How comfortable are you going ahead? And that's the question of the night. One of the questions of the night. I am dumbfounded. I am, again, completely shell shocked. And I'm going to tell you why I'm shell shocked. Because I listen to Nick Sirianni, and I essentially listen to Nick essentially say the whole thing's his fault. And he still has his job. So I'm not sure what in God's name is going on, but that press conference just gave me less of a hope that this thing is going to rewrite itself. Okay. Now, Adam says Sirianni looks scared. He should have got fired too. I don't have faith in him at the moment until he writes the shit with getting new coaches and let them do their jobs. I mean, that's the thing. Is he going to let them do their job? He said so many different things in this press conference that really had me perturbed, man. It really did. Somebody wrote on Twitter, I forget, and I apologize. I've been going back. Actually, it might have been on Facebook. I'm going to get to those comments soon because I had a lot of good comments, a lot of good commentary. But my whole thing was, why did he just say, when they said the best question, I think it was Tim McManus, basically said, well, if you're going to allow somebody to be complete control of the offense and somebody complete control of the defense, he asked, what are you going to do? And I don't think he knew what to say. He said, I'm going to be the head coach. Maybe I'm going to sit in a defensive meeting. So you're telling me you've never sat in a defensive meeting before? Like, are you even involved, Nick? Like, are you even involved? Like, he stumbled so much in that press conference. Like, I don't think he knew what to say, how to say it. And yeah, Javon, 100%. Javon says, I found it weird that Roseman had to jump in for Sirianni a few times during the presser. I think that was for two reasons. Not a lot of people were saying, it's because Nick stumbles on. And I don't think that was just it. I think Roseman was like, dude, shut up. That's like, I think Roseman was scared that he was going to say something he shouldn't have. So Howie was like, no, Nick, that's not it. It's this. Like, Howie had if you don't sit there and you don't understand, right, that this is a full-on power play with Howie Roseman and Jeff Lurie, just like my man Fuji says, I wholeheartedly agree. Jeff and Howie are calling the shots. My man Coach Dave's been saying the same thing for months, right? My man Tommy Doyle, what's up, Tommy? Checking in. Long time, brother. He says, I wonder if Howie was speaking in team meetings towards the end of the year. That's a great point. That is a great point. I bet you he was. And here's a question. Here's a question I want to ask. So, if anybody else was watching, And if anybody, listen, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on Twitter, you're watching on YouTube, man, do me a favor. If you're not on YouTube, swing over to YouTube if you could and just give a subscription to the Heat Ratio Sports page and give a like to the show. And the call lines are open. The call lines are open. No wait time here, man. This is like radio, but no hold times here, man. You get live on the line if you want to be on the line or comment away. Now, the question I have is, and I think you guys are going to appreciate this. So just so everybody knows, and I know Foods does it, I know Javon does it, and I'm not saying Adam, you don't do it, or Tommy don't do it, but I'm just saying I know Foods and Javon do it because Foods has done some sports talk. Obviously, he does podcasting. Javon does podcasting, and he writes, and he's an editor, and so when you're in the sports media business, the first thing I did was take my Spiral copybook and I start writing down notes. Okay. That's what I start writing down notes. Obviously, I know a lot of people hit on. My first note was Howie looks tired. Howie looks tired. This dude ain't shaved in a month. No haircut, no nothing, right? That's different from the guy that was in Houston telling people like, yeah, I got your effing Super Bowl, wasn't it? Different than that guy. Wasn't different Howie today. Howie was completely different today, right? So there was a lot of things I was writing down. And one of the most important things, one of the things I wrote down was Sirianni's ego. I'm going to get to that a little later. But because I think he pulled a power move and he slipped on it. But how about this? Let me ask you guys this. So you heard Sirianni say, and that's why I still say McManus had the best question of the day when he asked, like, what are you going to do now? When he admittedly said, well, maybe I'll go into a defensive meeting. Maybe I'll do this. Okay, so if he wasn't in a defensive meeting, then how could he be the guy to demote Sean Desai? So when that press conference opened up, Howie Roseman was asked specifically, was this a Howie play or was this a Nick thing? And he said Nick had already made his mind up. He said Nick walked into the office and he said Nick said he made his mind. He's going to demote Sean Desai and he's going to promote Matt Patricia. But then 10 minutes later, Nick Sirianni saying, basically admitting he doesn't even sit in the defensive meeting. So how the hell can he make a decision that he's not even privy to? See why this thing doesn't make any sense? Like, again, FYI to the Philadelphia Eagles, FYI Howie Roseman and Jeff Lurie, you are talking to the most educated and intellectual fan base in all of sports. Yes, I am saying that because we live, breathe, and eat this shit every day. And yes, we are passionate, and yes, we are crazy, and yes, we sometimes get a little ridiculous. But one thing's for damn sure, you're not pulling no wool over our eyes. You're not pulling any wool over our eyes. And I picked that shit up right away. And I was like, wait a minute. This definitely makes zero sense. This dude just admitted he's not even in the defensive playroom, but all of a sudden he's making the call. Doesn't make any sense, man. Doesn't make any sense. Shout out to my man Sean, just for me, I love it. Just for me, he hopped off of Facebook and he hopped on YouTube, brother. I appreciate it, man. How's that lacrosse stuff going, man? Sean does a huge lacrosse thing, man. He was in Puerto Rico last year when we were talking, man. I love it, man. I'm glad to see you, brother. Tommy says, or did the media get too much into Nick's head about how bad the size play calling was? I think, you know what, Tom? Honestly, I think that could be something to that effect. And I think this was a pure panic move for everybody. It really was, because they saw something going on and they weren't sure what it was. And they just made a panic move and they made it friggin' worse, right? They made it worse. You don't change schemes in the middle of a friggin' season, dude. Like, you just don't do that. You just don't do that. It does, like, that's a pure panic move, man. Pure panic move. And again, I still feel like that was the move all along. I feel like Desai was not the guy that they wanted. I feel like it was forced. And unfortunately, they thought Matt Patricia was going to fix it. And obviously he didn't, right? Obviously, he didn't. Joe says, what I would tell my players that made excuses, you sound smarter when you're quiet. Yeah, exactly. 100%, man. Somebody needs to tell that to Sirianni. Seriously. And the funny thing is, like, again, I still go back to that first press conference, right? Now, Sirianni could be the best when it comes to being a compassionate and a player's coach. Okay. That doesn't mean he's a good X's and O's guys. That's just listen, it's what happens, right? It's what happens. Your true colors come out sometimes when you talk too much. And I think Sirianni got a little cocky. Sirianni got a little ahead of himself. The offensive was working. And then as soon as it started not to work, he started to press, right? He started to press. And as he started to press, he started to make bad decisions. And as he started to press, he started to unravel. And if you're the head coach of a football team or a basketball team or doesn't matter, whatever you are a head coach of, okay, you have to understand that people are going to emulate your every move. Okay. That's what's going to happen. You're a leader of men. These aren't kids. These aren't high school players. These aren't college athletes, man. These are grown men. Okay. They're prideful grown men. But at the same time, everybody looks at that meme and talks about that time where Nick Sirianni was basically jawing to the Chiefs and Jalen Hurts rolled his eyes like, dude, stop. Like, you're becoming a clown, right? Like, it's okay to be a cheerleader. It's okay to be crazy. But sometimes you have to be a clown. Like, I mean, sometimes you got to be careful not to be a clown. I'm gonna tell you a funny story. I think you guys are really appreciate this. So I'm at a tournament this weekend, and like I spoke about on Monday. And sorry, no show was last night. Apologize for that. Had some stuff going on. And be honest with you, man, I was exhausted. Had a long day. I was like, look, I'm just gonna have to bag it for the night and come back strong tomorrow. And I did double shows. We did the draft cast for Win Daily, and now I'm doing HRS Late Nights. But the funny thing was, listen, when you're coaching 16, 17-year-old boys in soccer, man, it's tough. It's tough. And what I'll say to that is, and Food, you'll respect, you'll understand this. I'm a Frankfurt boy, man. Like, I grew up in the hood, in my opinion. And I'm a hood dude, like, for real. Like, I fought, I was a tough guy, and I didn't listen. I had a lot of pride. I didn't back down. And, when I got these kids out there talking trash to me, like, I want to go out to the field and roll. Like, I'm not the normal suburban coach who's like grew up in, the nice Upper Bucks County area and, doesn't understand street slang, doesn't understand looks. And all of a sudden now these dudes want to be gangsters and they're on the field and they want to step. Like, no, I'm a step back. Like, and the one dude was so funny. The one kid, he was the best player on the team. And he did something, and I called to the ref, and this dude comes over to me. He's like, "Yo, you don't know what you're talking about." I said, "Dude, I'm gonna tell you something, man. You see this guy standing next to me?" I was like, "I'm not like him." Okay, so you got one more move. And I know I can't do nothing to you, but see your coach standing over there. He's fair game. So I'm gonna tell you right now, Brandon, you need to step back. And after I did that, I thought to myself, like, dude, you need to stop. Like, you need to stop. Like, but it's tough because these aren't little kids anymore, man. Like, these are little. So I tell that story because now, obviously, full transparency, at the end of the game, listen, they smoked us. He was the best player on the team. I went up to him. I shook his hand. I said, look, bro, I apologize. You just got to understand. I said, I'm a downtown, I'm a downtown Philly boy. Okay, I don't know if you know where I came from because we're in Upper Bucks County, but I'm going to tell you something. I said, I don't play like that. So I apologize, though. I say, you're really good. Just do me a favor. Just be careful who you talk to that way, because you just never know when you meet your match. And the reason why I tell that story is because I have to learn sometimes to calm myself down. right? So Nick Sirianni, I think he feels like he's invincible to that fact. And and it's still funny, man. It's still funny because I think a lot of this falls around his ego. I really do. Now Joe's staying on his head to this, man. He says he still thinks Patricia walked in and said he should be named defensive coordinator. And I'll tell you what, if he did, Joe, honestly, he's a slime ball. But I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. Right? Like, again, this is a business. And you think about, I talk about it all the time, man. Like in sports media, especially in Philadelphia, dude, there's a lot of scumbags. Are you kidding me? Like, there's a lot of scumbags, dude. Like, you think people are your friend? No friggin' way, dude. They're taking every opportunity that they can to rip you apart sometimes and tear you down. They're not your boy, right? The first chance they get, they're going to that producer and be like, yo, look, you should put me in that spot, or I should be on that show. Or like, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, think about it. Think about what they did. Yo, real fast, not to get off topic here, but I'm sorry. You know me, guys. When things get in my head, I like to talk about it because I meant to talk about it and I forgot to talk about it. How about how they did my man John Marks dirty, bro? They did John Marks dirty. Say what you want, right? Say what you want. They knew all along Spike was coming back. They knew all along he was coming back. And then Johnny Marks goes on cross and broad and speaks out. He doesn't bury anybody. I watched that. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, he literally picked up that a lot of those people and had a lot of good positive things to say, and they canned his ass. So it because of that, it's so crazy, man. It's so crazy. But yeah, it's nuts, man. It's nuts when you think about it. But we're gonna go to the phone lines now, which is great. My man Sean is calling in right now. Sean, been a long time, brother. How you doing?
What's up, man? How are you?
Oh man, I know. Listen, Sean. I know you said you had to wrap your head around this press conference, man. So I'm curious, man. What are you thinking here?
So I've listened to a lot of what you said so far. So I'm just gonna kind of take things, kind of segment by segment. All right.
All right, sounds good, man.
Howie Roseman does look tired, but I think Howie Roseman does it to himself. I don't need a guy with a Fordham law degree running my football team in terms of X's and O's. I just don't need that. Like, everything he does in terms of contracts, getting the money to fit, that's, best in the league, right?
Yep.
Stay out of the game day. Like, I don't need you making my decision who's on the game day roster and who's a scratch. And like, I don't need that. Like, dude, you have a law degree. You're good with numbers. You're not a football guy. So I think he kind of does that to himself. And I know it's not going to happen, but I would love for him to kind of back out of that. So I totally agree with you there. Dude, I've been back and forth so many times over the last week about Sirianni. So, one, Brian Johnson, everyone can agree, he never had a firm handle on the offense. Sirianni says it's his playbook, right? So, if it's your playbook and it's always been your playbook, well, then Shane Steichen was calling plays from your playbook and did a phenomenal job. You need someone more like Shane Steichen, not like Brian Johnson. And guess what? They were pretty much in the same system for the same amount of time. So really no excuse for Brian Johnson and his terrible play calling. So I'm not going to – I think that was a good move, right? In terms of the whole defensive coordinator thing,
you liking Vic Fangio? Because it definitely seems, I don't know if you lost your connection, lost your mic. But I know you were, when you come back, let me know. Not a problem. But you're talking about the
12.
There you go. There you go. Hey, Sean. You cut out for a while. I heard right after you said defensive coordinator, it went blank.
Yeah. So I was saying in terms of defensive coordinator, Sean Desai should not have been. Obviously, everyone's on the same page, right? Like, dude should have been out. In terms of Matt Patricia, though, he was not good, right? I think we can all agree with that. But I also think he takes some unnecessary flack. And I'll only say this: like, I don't think he should be the DC next year. I didn't necessarily disagree with the move, though. The thing that people don't understand, and I played football, like, you know, I coach lacrosse at a high level. Dude was forced to call plays from a playbook that wasn't even his. You're not going to install a defense week 12, week 13 of a season. So, I mean, he's kind of put between a rock and a hard place. Like, I think at the end of the day, Matt Patricia would have loved to have had that job at the beginning of the year and installed his own defense.
I don't disagree, but I'll ask you this.
And listen, I'm not dying on the Matt Patricia hill.
No. I get it. Like, I think you're 100% correct, because I think what happens is I think we kind of get tossed up into that we all hate Matt Patricia kind of thing, and don't really look at what happened. But I'll be honest, I don't think Desai got a good deal, man. I don't think
he got a good deal, but I also don't think he did anything to help himself.
No, that's a good point.
That's, you know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, you obviously know my background, but like, I'm the head coach of a national lacrosse team, right? So
love it, man.
But you know what I do? Like, my offensive coordinator and my defensive coordinator are completely autonomous. I let them do their own thing, and I'm basically the CEO of the team, right? So I can pop in both sides and know what's going on, but I give them full autonomy and let them do their thing. Like, I feel like Nick Sirianni, like, you know, yeah, he's an offensive guy. So he just kind of separated himself from the defensive side because he's not comfortable, right? Like, in lacrosse, I'm a defensive guy, but I still have to bounce into the offensive huddle every once in a while because I got to know what's going on, right? Like, you got to get outside your comfort zone. So, you know, you said it earlier, the fact that he's going to like sit in on some defensive meetings, like, dude, you should have been doing that already.
Right.
Like, what are you doing?
Well, let me ask you this, because I'm glad you said that. So you give them full autonomy, which is great. So, but I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but I want to hear from you because you're the guy, you're the coach, you're in a situation. If you see these things spiraling out of control, what do you step in and be like, yo, what's going on here?
Correct. Yeah. And I mean, the last World Championships we played in 2022, my offensive coordinator wanted to run a scheme, and specifically in our game when we played Team USA, and I was completely against it initially. But dude, we talked about it. We hashed it out. We even reached out to our old high school coach who coached for 46 years and lost a total of 60 games over 46 years. We came to a cohesive agreement as to what was going to go on, right? Like, I feel like the game planning and all this didn't even happen this entire season. You know why? Because every single game, the game plan had to change. Well, guess what? If you're changing the game plan at halftime of every single game, then you never had a game plan going into the game. Like, you just did.
And if you did it, it must not have been very good. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, if you did have a game plan, it must not have been good at all. And so crazy, man. This whole situation is just absolutely nuts. I lost Sean again for a second there, but yeah. Are you back, Sean? Hey, Sean, you hear me? So I think we lost Sean again. But listen, fantastic call. Sean, if you get your connection squared away, you can obviously call me back. If not, man, love the piece, man. Love the interjection. I think it was fantastic. There's a guy who does it. Oh, he's calling back. Let's see. Let's see if we can get him. Hey, Sean, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I lost you.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah. So, no, I was saying is this whole situation just boggles my mind because, you know, you have this guy up there at this podium and he's basically admitting that everything's on him. but everybody else goes and he gets to stay. And it's just one of the oddest situations I ever recall in this town. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, as a head coach, you have to be held accountable for the decisions that you make, not just in terms of X's and O's, but who you take on as your staff, right? Like, so,
Yep.
I mean, listen, if one side of the ball was extremely terrible this year and the other side was okay, like, I'm good with him staying, right? But
Yep.
both sides were awful. Like,
Yeah.
even when they were 10-1, nobody could honestly look at any of us with a straight face and say that they felt comfortable at any point, like from beginning to end of any single game. It was not last year at all.
No.
Like last year we felt good, like we're crushing teams, right? Like 10-1, but I felt like every game was a nail biter, even from that first game in New England. Like you're just like, what's going on? So
100%,
like,
100%.
to me, like, I feel like it just kind of finally caught up to them. I don't know, man. Like here in the press conference today, you asked me earlier what my thoughts were on it, and honestly, it just sounded like a babbling idiot who had no idea like what was going on within his own organization. So I don't know. I'm not like a knee-jerk reaction guy, but man, I thought and I've been also going back and forth on this, like between what was a bigger collapse, the Phillies and the NLCS or this team this season. I mean, they're pretty neck and neck, but to be 10-1 and then, just completely crash and burn like that. I mean, there's really no defense for that. So I don't know. I think the leash has to be tight. And to be honest with you, like if he doesn't show up next year, even halfway through the season, I'd clip him halfway through the season.
Oh, like I 100% agree.
If you're bringing in a guy like Vic Fangio, right?
Yep.
Even if you brought in Ron Rivera, like I don't think you go wrong as DC with either one of those guys, right? Like, and listen, Ron Rivera wasn't a great head coach. Doesn't mean he's not a good DC. Like some people who have never coached a sport don't realize this. Like there are people who are made to be assistant coaches.
Yep.
And they're not always made to be a head coach. So, they can be tremendous assistant coaches and not be good head coaches. I mean,
100%.
Josh McDaniels, same way. Like, Josh McDaniels, great OC, terrible head coach, and we've seen it twice now. So
we've seen it in this town. Ray Rhodes.
Correct. I mean, Ray Rhodes. Exactly.
Fantastic defensive coach, but not a head coach.
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, you get a guy like that as one of your coordinators, and this team does this next year, man, halfway through the year, I'm cutting bait with Sirianni, and I'm taking one of those guys and saying, just get me through the end of the year. Doesn't mean they're going to be there the following year as the full-time head coach, but you're going to have someone who can at least get you through the second half of the year. But, I mean, I don't know, man. It was just I still think the biggest thing is, like, Sirianni, I feel like we're back to his first press conference. Like, it's just a babbling idiot, right? Like,
Yep. And that's the first thing I thought, man.
He really has no idea what's going on. And the whole, it's starting to sound like Andy. We all got sick with Andy, right? Like, I got to do a better job. I got to do a better job. He's doing the same thing. And
he is.
It's the same exact thing. And history is repeating itself. You even saw a little bit with Doug. It's getting old. And you're right. Like, people in this town, hard-earned money, right? Blue-collar talent. Like, nobody is shelling out thousands of dollars to go watch slop. Like, I'm sorry. Like, this isn't New York. This isn't Chicago. This isn't, LA, Vegas, anything like that. Like, people in this town work hard so that they can go to Eagles games on Sundays and watch good product. And I don't know. I feel like, it's great that he got us to the Super Bowl last year. That's great. He got us there. But at the end of the day, there's one team that hoists the trophy. It should have been us. But even in that game, like, I kind of feel like that was the precursor for this year. Like, that game, like, think about it. Like, crash and burn in the second half, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like we never recovered this entire year.
No, it's listen, man, all great points. It really is, man. It's like it's exactly what I've been thinking for most of the day, man. It really is. And I don't know where we go from here, but it's one thing I know we do know it's going to be a very interesting 2 to 3 months leading up to the draft and trading.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and you got to rebuild an entire defense practically.
Yep.
I mean, I say entire defense, and I mean it. Like, there's a lot of dudes that were slop on that defense. I'm hoping that, I hope Howie gets the nerve to draft a linebacker for, like, I can't watch Zach Cunningham play linebacker anymore. Like, I can't
and
watch
even
a guy
mentioned him in the press conference too.
Like, yeah, like it just come on. Like, it's literally an important position on the field. The fact that you don't want to draft it, like, is concerning to me. And listen, like, Jason Kelce looked tired after the Tampa game, the first Tampa game. Like, he looked tired all year. He's obviously not coming back, right? You're gonna have to do something with the line. You need a third wide receiver. You got to get, like, I don't know. I think the biggest charge against the Sirianni regime this year was you had a stud as a running back and you just didn't even use him the entire year.
Yeah,
like you had a couple games and my man put up huge numbers, and then you just went right back to the way where you were before. And it's just like, I don't know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, dude runs for 170 yards, give him the ball. Give him the ball until someone figures out how to stop him. And the last point I'll give you, I think Jalen Hurts is the most overrated quarterback in the league. And I said it from the time they signed him. Listen, his demeanor is awful. Awful. Like, we've gone past the point where he's steady Eddie. Like, he flat out just didn't care.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Think about it. No, and I only say it because of this. Like, everyone's like, oh, calm, cool, and collective. No, like, literally looked like he didn't care. Like, I'm sorry, like, shaking his head, sitting on the sideline. Like, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is calm, cool, and collective, right? But you still see him getting his dudes fired up. And I'm sick of hearing about the standard. Nobody knows what the standard is because you can't even define it. Like, I don't know, man. Like, and to be honest with you, this is the other thing. AJ Brown, like, Sirianni admitted they're calling their own plays out there, right? Like, I mean, he said, we call the play. AJ Brown changed it. Jalen Hurts changed it. Guess what, dude? Leaders don't do that. Leaders pull the coach aside behind closed doors and say, what are we doing here? You don't stage a full-on mutiny in the middle of a game and start calling your own plays that obviously didn't work. Like, what happened?
That's a good point.
Embarrassing.
I'm not.
Like,
I'm
if you're
not
a true leader, you pull.
That is a great point that I never even thought of. That is a great point that I never even thought of.
They saw.
Now, I'm not.
Well,
I mean,
right? They saw.
You're caught in and out. I'm losing connection. But yeah,
I think he's honestly a terrible leader.
Listen, Sean, you made a great point. I didn't think about that. I'm not. I'm not going to say he's overrated. I won't agree with you there, but I will agree that
he's a good quarterback. I mean, he's probably. Listen, is he a top 10 quarterback in the league? Probably. Like, I'm not arguing that. But
right.
he's not.
But no,
he ain't top 5. He ain't top 5.
What you say is a good point. I mean, a true leader. Like, at first, I was like, it shows he doesn't have any faith in the coaches. Well, that's fine, but what does that show in the other players? Now that you make me think about it, you can't just do that on your own and start freebasing out there. I mean,
no.
And that's just, everybody's following you, man. Like, so yeah, that's a good point, man. I didn't even think about that.
I don't know. And, like, I say overrated, I don't mean skill wise. Like, he's obviously a skilled quarterback, but you need your quarterback to be the leader of your team. I mean, I don't think he's top 5 in the league. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not saying, like, Dak's ahead of him, but, like, I mean, think about it. Just off the top of the head, like, I'd rather have a healthy Joe Burrow. I'd rather have a Patrick Mahomes. I'd rather have a Josh Allen. I'd rather have guys like that. I'd rather have Lamar Jackson. To be honest with you, I think Justin Herbert's got a better arm than Jalen Hurts. I'm not saying he's a better overall leader or a better overall quarterback, but like there's other guys that you can make arguments for.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
you know what I'm saying?
right.
Like, it's
I'm not going to get on the Herbert. I think Herbert stinks.
No, I'm just throwing names out there where
Yeah.
like, you know, maybe he's like the back end of that top 5. Like maybe he's number 5, but he's not a shoo-in. Like there's other guys you can make arguments for.
Yeah, no, there is. I think he played at a top 5 level last year, but to call him top
Correct.
5 overall, I think is being irresponsible. I definitely think he's top 10. I think he's probably somewhere between like 8 and 10.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely look at the landscape of the way people have played this year and say, okay, you know, but look, man, I appreciate you calling in, brother. I do.
Man. Appreciate
but
it.
no, before you go, man, what you got going on with lacrosse?
So we just found out today, 2025 World Championships will be in South Korea.
Ooh.
So I am, so actually not even on the mainland. It's going to be on a island that is part of South Korea, but it's in the East China Sea. So it's actually kind of in between China, Japan, and South Korea.
Wow.
So it's going to be really cool. Getting tryouts this year. Got a couple guys coming back from 2022 when we finished 8th in the world at our first World Championships for under 20. And then we got some absolute studs who are already committed to Division I schools. And by the time the tournament rolls around, they'll already be enrolled and playing. So, just been busy with that, man. And, also following my Syracuse football team. So I'm hoping we have another year like 95 when McNabb was a senior. But, had to buckle up and get some season tickets this year. I'm all aboard the Kyle McCord train. So,
love it, man. I love it.
Go.
But listen, I love it. I do, man. Listen, as always, brother, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the support.
Absolutely.
You're always there over the years, man. It's great that you called in, man. I love to have you call whenever you're up for it, man. Hit me up, man.
Absolutely, man. You're doing a great thing. And I wish, I hope more people continue to, tune in because, you're great in incorporating your audience. You like you said earlier, it's not a regular sports talk radio show, right? Like you're not getting the hook in 2 minutes. You'll have a conversation, you'll have some dialogue, and it'll be fun. So
and the funny thing is, we all have opinions. I say it all the time. Like nobody could say I'm right. Nobody could say that I'm wrong, and that goes for everybody. Like it's like you brought up great points that I didn't even think of tonight. Like there's no narratives here. You know what I mean?
At the end of the day, listen, we're all Eagles fans, right? We're all Phillies fans, Sixers fans, Flyers, like whoever. Like I don't think anyone would be calling into the show if they weren't. If they do, then it's probably not a wise decision on their part because I'm sure everyone would attack them. But no, like listen, we're passionate, right? And it took me like a week to kind of just sit down and figure it out. I think a lot of people in the city are knee jerk, and I don't blame them, right? But at the end of the day,
through a lot, man. We've been through a lot.
we have. But no, man. I appreciate what you're doing. I think it's great. Look forward to watching you grow. I think when you hop on late at night, it's great because get little man to bed and get to wind down with some sports talk. So,
you hit the nail on the head, and it's exactly why I did it, because this was always my time. It was exactly what you said. The kids are in bed. Like my kids are older now; they work, but I once they come home, I feel good and I feel safe. Right, so they're home.
Perfect for me with a 5-year-old. So.
Yes, you know what I mean. So it's like it's the perfect time, and I can get my passion out, and I can talk to the audience. So yeah, man. As always, best of luck with the team, and if there's anything ever I could do to help you out, get a word out somewhere, as always, man, just let me know.
Yeah, appreciate you, Tony. Keep doing your thing, man.
Thanks, Sean. Have a great night, buddy.
You too, bud. Sit.
There he is, man. My man Sean checking in, calling on the line, man. Listen, we'll get all these comments out of this. Sean's the man, man. Like, he may listen. We got a lot to talk about, right? We got a lot to talk about. Again, nobody. He talked about Jalen Hurts, and he talked about the leadership. And, from a coaching perspective, right? I can't disagree with them. I never thought about it that way. And yeah, I listen, I think it would be irresponsible for us to say that Jalen's a top 5 quarterback right now. He hasn't played like a top 5 quarterback. I still think he's top 10, but now I disagree with Sean when I think he was talking more of arm strength, not overall when he talked about Herbert. Right. But I'm not a big Justin Herbert guy. I think Justin Herbert's had he's had numerous chances. I mean, listen, first it was Anthony Lynn couldn't do it. Then it was Staley couldn't do it. I mean, how many times are you going to blame the head coach? Eventually, you have to start looking at the quarterback and say, listen, we've been through offensive schemes and coaches and you're just not it. Right. So we have to think about that. So I'm not going to be on the Justin Herbert wagon for sure. Adam says, we pay attention to what is going on as a fan base, even though other people think we are not smart. That's, what it is, Adam. Honestly, it's because people just look at us as these irrational drunks that loved Wing Bowl, that caused disruption. And I'll say this again, and I'll say it all the time. If you want to make a name for yourself, whether you're Emmanuel Acho, okay, whether you're any of these national pundits out there, okay, or whether you're Joe the podcaster, all you need to do is come at somebody of Philly or talk about Philly in vain or give a bad opinion of Philly. And you're going to get so much clickbait. You're going to get, listen, let's call it. I usually don't do this. Okay, but I'll do it for this show because it is late nights. It's past midnight, and I'm feeling good. Okay, Dan Sileo, stop it. Stop with all the nonsense. I've never listened to somebody that flip flop more than this dude ever, and to know that he continues to get ratings and stuff, I just, again, I don't know. I don't get it. And I can't listen to it, man. I can't listen to it. One day, he's Jalen Hurts' best friend. The next day, Jalen Hurts sucks. It's back and forth. But again, it plays the narrative, right? It brings the people in. And then what happens is they share the stuff and they talk about it and they engage. Bro, we're all falling into that trap, unfortunately, right? So, yeah, and it's all over. It's all over. Food says, Jalen just doesn't respect Sirianni, period. I see that too, Mike. I'm saying, Mike, I got to call you Foods, man. Yeah, I see that too, Foods. I don't think he does not respect him one bit. Adam says, so what do you think the reason that Lori Howie didn't fire Sirianni? The only reason why, and I'm sold on this, Adam. I am. I'm sold on this. The reason why Sirianni doesn't get fired is because there was nobody out there that was good enough in their mind to come in and conform to the culture. Vrabel wasn't doing it. Belichick's not doing it. Nobody, listen, the thing is, nobody of that kind of stature or experience is going to have Howie Roseman as their guy. They're just not. Now, if Howie Roseman played the Joe Banner role, sure. If he was just an X's and O's guys, and he was writing the checks and he was making sure the contracts were in line, no problem. But when you have Howie Roseman basically telling you who dresses and who doesn't, when you have Howie Roseman making on-field decisions, no head coach that has a resume is going to come here in this town. So that guy wasn't out there, man. And the guys that possibly could be that guy, they're going to need to take a coordinator job first, like a guy like Ron Rivera or a guy like Vic Fangio or a guy like Cliff Kingsbury, who I absolutely like to be the new offensive coordinator, him or Chip Kelly. I'm going to stand on my head and say it's got to be Kingsbury or Chip. And I know people think I'm crazy about Chip, but I'm telling you right now, man, Chip will come in here and he will employ an offense around these guys. Okay. Jalen, AJ, Devontae, Dallas, those 4 guys. Chip Kelly is probably he's salivating right now thinking about it. I think he would be that good. Tommy says, "Is it?" I'm sorry, I got a lot of comments. I'm catching up now. Tommy says, "Is it crazy to think how true Nick Bosa's comment of we gave the league the blueprint on how to beat the Eagles?" No, it's not crazy, Tommy. It's not. I'm going to be honest with you. Because I was thinking about that today because I can't stand Nick Bosa. I can't stand Nick Bosa. Like he's another dude who thinks he's way bigger than he is. He's such an egomaniac. I'm not a big Nick Bosa guy. I'd much rather watch Joey Bosa, not Nick Bosa. But listen, it's not crazy. It's legit, right? It's legit. So you think about it. It is absolutely legit. Javon says, I remember that moment with Sirianni doing the first down sign in the Super Bowl, and Hurts looked at him like, so yeah, Javon, you joined a little late. That's exactly what I was saying. Like, you saw the eye roll. He was like, yo, come on, man. Like, enough. You'll continue to ride this train. Okay. You're going to continue to ride this train no matter what. And, when you ride this train, you just never know where it's going to stop, man. Like, and I just can't believe they're still riding the train. I'm gonna be honest with you. I still can't believe they're riding the train. Joe says, I say that because there were drastic changes. An interim guy isn't going to make max changes. He had a plan in his head, in my opinion. And he's talking about Matt Patricia, right? Like he knows that he was going to make drastic changes. And they knew that maybe if they could pivot to him, he could possibly pull a few strings that maybe could take them to the next step. Right. And I think that's what they thought, but it just didn't work. My man David said WWE, huge deal, man. WWE to Netflix, huge deal. We'll talk about that a little later. Crazy, crazy deal. Mike Food says, who's going to be the OC? Like I said, I think it's going to be Kingsbury. I do. I think it's going to be Cliff, but you just never know. You just never know. Joe says they start 1-3 and distractions will set in, more turmoil and drama. It'll be nauseating on the airwaves. It really will, man. Like if they start 1-3, oh my Lord. It is like this town is going to go absolutely nuts. And yeah, Nick will be on a short leash, Shooge. You got that damn right. My man Rich checking in. What's up, Rich? He said, Vic, that's a lot of the same that we just witnessed for the last couple of years. The only thing I will say, and I know a lot of people were saying it, and I'm just going to agree with them, that, instead of getting the guys that learn from Vic, we actually get Vic, right? So I'm happy that we're getting a guy that's on a project. That was my biggest thing. I didn't want a project. I wanted a guy that, again, was somebody who has been around the block, because obviously this team needs a veteran presence. And that's the only thing I'm glad about, man, because Vic's not listening to Nick. Fuck. And I'll be honest with you, man. I'm actually surprised because, he was the defensive assistant. Remember, they brought him here specifically, and you remember the deal. He was going to be the guy anyway, and Gannon kind of screwed him over by making his decision late, and he had already went to Miami when he didn't want to go to Miami, but he wanted to be a coordinator, and they offered him the money. They offered him a job, so he took it because he thought Gannon was staying here. So, I do like Fangio for the simple fact that he is a veteran presence. I think that's what we need. Javon says the Eagles also lack defensive line depth and didn't have no type of rotation, which was a staple last season. You're right. It's a reason why they brought in Linval Joseph and they brought in Ndamukong Suh. They had those guys, coming in and out. Now, I'll be honest with you. I still say, and I continue to say, you watched it show up in that game. I really like Milton Williams. I like him. I think he's shifty. I think he could be just like Javon Hargrave. And I just think that he needs more time. The problem is you kept forcing Jordan Davis in there. And I'm telling you what, man, Jordan Davis got exposed. He admitted, and that's the biggest thing, man. You drafted a guy to be that stalwart, that guy in the middle that he's essentially, you drafted him to be another Aaron Donald. You thought you were going to get 2 Aaron Donalds in the middle, one with Jalen Carter and one with Jordan Davis. Now, Jalen Carter is a stud. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care how much. Again, everybody hits a rookie wall, man. Everybody hits a rookie wall. Everybody's done it, especially the D tackle position, because when you're a rookie and, it's a little different from the ends. All right, the ends are, you get those guys on the ends, like those bookend tackles, like we have with Runyon and Thomas, and obviously we get with Mailata and Lane Johnson. But when you're in the middle, man, you're deep in those trenches, and you start getting in double teams, and no stunts aren't working anymore, and the swim moves aren't working, and the spin moves, man, it gets frustrating. And when you're used to being a guy that beats people at will, especially when you first came into the league too, you were getting to the quarterback at will, and that stops. Sometimes it's a mental thing. Sometimes it's a mind game, and it works on you. So listen, I saw enough. I didn't see enough from Jordan Davis in 2 years. What have I seen from Jordan Davis that says, well, he's a stud, except that he's tall and he's big and he's a monster? That doesn't mean he can play on a consistent level. So the jury's going to be out on Jordan Davis, man. Like I said it before, and I'll say it again. I mean, you took a guy who had a problem, like eating. He had an eating issue, man. Like my boy was chomping on Swedish fish instead of learning the playbook sometimes. So you decide to take that instead of a guy like Kyle Hamilton, who you needed at a position, who was balling out for Baltimore. Unfortunately, he got injured, but still balling out the safety position, man. How good would Kyle Hamilton look on this team? So that's a big problem. Food says the Eagles don't like to run the ball. Agree. Don't get it. It's Savon's response to Hurts being overrated. It says Joe says last year Hurts was stoic. Same face this year, and he gets knocked. I'm glad you said it. Now I will say this, Joe, that I do think he was different he didn't show much excitement this year, and I do think he was more standoffish on the sideline. Now his face, sure, but I don't. And again, and here's the thing too. I'm not at the game, okay? So here's what we all have to be careful of too. We're only seeing whatever the cameraman wants to show us. And if the cameraman or the network has an agenda, then they're going to show the agenda, right? So I don't know if he was talking to his teammates. I don't know, because every time the camera angle went to Jalen Hurts, he looked miserable and he looked like he was by himself. But that was for a 5-second take, right? So I don't know what he was doing 10 seconds before. I don't know what he was doing 10 seconds after. So I'm not going to knock. I'm just going to knock him on what I see. And that was there. He didn't have those dances in the end zone anymore. It didn't look like he was having fun. And again, it didn't look like he was having fun because he wasn't having fun because of all that animosity and that power struggle that was going on the sideline. Rich says they don't pull that if they have a coach they respect, which is free ball, and I agree. Joe says maybe they had earlier, and that's why they finally went rogue. That's true too. Maybe they started and then they finally were like, dude, screw this, it's over. Javon says he's been MVP over the last 2 years candidate. You're right. That's why I don't feel like he's overrated. Javon says Britton Covey stuck off for Hurts earlier today. Yeah, I love that too. By the way, go for Britton Covey. Man, because again, that was that was so misconstrued. And then you saw McLean come out too and double down, which was interesting. Fuji says, I believe AJ Brown may be gone. I believe that too. I do. I think AJ's gone. I do. It's crazy, bro. It's crazy. But But again, like, here's what I want everybody to think about. I want everybody to think about, you know, the way this team is modeled. The way this team is modeled. That's what I want you guys to think about. I brought up in the beginning of the year, before any of this even happened, I said the Eagles are going to have to start looking at decisions. And everybody said, what are you talking about? I'm like, because they can't pay 2 number 1 wide receivers. Number one, I can't believe they paid 1. Okay. I can't believe they paid 1. But what they paid 1 in that 4-year deal they gave AJ, guess what? He's technically going to be underpaid, right? And you don't think that AJ Brown was thinking about that? You don't think when he saw Justin Jefferson sign that deal and Jamar Chase sign those deals, you don't think he's thinking about that? Of course he is, right? So he's thinking in his mind, am I going to get paid again? He's a young dude, right? But the Eagles are thinking, am I going to pay both of these guys? Most likely not. Most likely not. So if you have Devontae in the last year of a 4-year deal, and you have Jalen or AJ Brown in the last year of a 4-year deal, what's going to give? What's going to give? You have to think about that. Well, actually, AJ's in the 3rd of a 4-year, right? But I'm sure his money's going to be more manageable. A lot of things are going to happen on this team, man. I'm just telling you, a lot of things are going to happen on this team. I would not, for 1 minute, be shocked if that happens. I would not be shocked. Would not be shocked. Rich says, stop it. Herbert never won anything. He was talking about Justin. I agree. I'm not a Justin Herbert guy. I'm not. Fuge, Harbaugh. David. Breaking news. He goes to the Chargers, which I think as soon as you saw that, who was supposed to get interviewed with the Chargers, and then they were like, nah, they called it off, because I think we knew, or no, Harbaugh called off the interview to Atlanta. So, at first it was like, okay, does that mean Belichick's going to be named, or does that mean that he's going to coach the Chargers? And I think we all got that right. And Joe says, name MVP hopefuls. He was there last year, dipped this year a bit because of his talent or wide receivers running straight. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was his talent. I do. I think it was more of the system, and I think it was just everything collapsing. I do. I really do. He says Joe says Harbaugh is going to have Herbert make a jump in skill set. Listen, if he could do it, I mean, listen, let's be honest. If he did it with Kyle Kaepernick, he's definitely going to do it with Justin Herbert. Herbert has the mojo for it, right? It's just putting him in that right spot, right? I mean, you got to be in that right spot, and I think that's the thing, and I think again, he just hasn't been in that right spot. But I also don't think he's as good as everybody thinks he is. I think he's highly overrated. In Justin Herbert, I really do. Rich says Howie made the decisions, and they want a yes man. That's why Sirianni is still there. He wants the power, and no one will be hired to threaten his power. Absolutely. That's why you will never get a coach in here that is of experience. Once Andy Reid will be the last coach in this regime that will have experience. I'm going to tell you that right now. The only way they're going to hire somebody as a head coach, it's going to be an up and coming guy. That's going to be either he's a special teams coach, a quarterbacks coach, or he's an offensive coordinator in NCAA in college, or maybe a college guy that's turning pro. But I don't even think they're going to go that route because the Chip Kelly thing burned up in their face, right? So I don't think they're going back that. Rich says, I like Kingsbury, an offensive coordinator. I love Cliff Kingsbury as an OC. I do. I really, really, really do. I think Cliff Kingsbury is the absolute prototypical coach that cannot be a head coach, but a hell of an offense coordinator. And I bring up Mike Martz all the time. I bring up Mike Martz's name all the time. Because for me, Mike Martz is that guy who was an absolute, and yeah, I get it. He had Warner, he had Falk, he had Torrey Holt, he had Isaac Bruce. I understand that. But still, you can have all these names. And if you don't run the right system and you don't allow these mouths to be fed, it doesn't mean that you're gonna follow the right script, right? So Mike Martz was an offensive genius, in my opinion, but he just couldn't be a head coach because he was so worried about the offense. I think Cliff was the same guy. I think Cliff Kingsbury, he took the money because they were giving him that opportunity, but he's very much a guy that just wants to be focused on one side of the ball. And if you give him that opportunity to just focus on the offense, and again, listen, you're giving him a guy like Jalen Hurts. I mean, I'm not a Kyler Murray guy, but listen, he made Kyler Murray look pretty damn good, didn't he? Right. So, you have that opportunity with Cliff Kingsbury. So I would definitely employ Cliff Kingsbury as OC. And again, I still say, hey, Chip Kelly, man, I still say he's out there. Joe says good enough coach or lack of a backbone. Sirianni knows he won't get another shot, so he accepted being neutered. He has one trick. His one trick is up, and he knows it. That's a great point. That's a great point. So basically what Joe's saying is he was given those ultimatums. He was given the ultimatums of saying, this guy's got to go. This guy's got to go. We're going to change this. We're going to change that. We're going to bring Vic Fangio in because he's our guy. We want Vic Fangio. He's going to be your defense coordinator. And we're going to let you know who the OC is going to be. We're going to let you know who the OC is going to be. And what was Sirianni going to say? No. Of course he's going to say yeah, right? Because he knows he's in a no-win situation. So that's a good point, Joe. That's a good point. Joe says Chip's ego would never accept a job here under Howie. You're probably right, right? You're probably right. But I'm just saying it would be, I'll tell you what, man, it would be great. It would be great. Food says right now, I don't think anyone wants to coach here. That I agree with. Rich says the problem is Howie doesn't value linebackers and safeties. It's a huge problem, man. It's a huge problem. I mean, like Sean said when he called in, this dude still, he's out there praising Zach Cunningham. Like, listen, I get it. Zach Cunningham did okay, but again, he was an unsigned free agent. Like, it's like, okay, that's great, but you didn't even plan to bring this guy in. You just got lucky he was out there. You threw him in, which means you didn't value the position at all. Now, what I do think is interesting, Rich, is that he was very adamant about Nakobe Dean being the guy. If you listen to the press conference, he was very adamant about Nakobe Dean being that guy. And he absolutely pointed to, listen, it wasn't his fault he wasn't on the field, meaning obviously because he got injured. So he must be a Nakobe guy. So in their vision, they did draft a linebacker. In their vision, it was a guy that they wanted. And, still maybe undersized a little bit, right? But it was still a guy that they wanted. So maybe I will give him that. I will give him that possibly, maybe he's trying to prove that he was trying to, change a little bit, but it's still not to the point where he's never going to take a linebacker in the first round. No way. No way. Man, David checking in, Gary Sheffield deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. 100%. You're absolutely right. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But again, like just, this show has been fantastic. A lot of great comments and great direction. I'm not going to force a topic if the one is hitting and it's continually getting some really good engagement. Because listen, we do this stuff. I'm going to be doing this tomorrow night. So the Gary Sheffield conversation isn't going to go anywhere. So maybe we talk about Gary Sheffield tomorrow night. Who knows, right? We just never know, which is great. So, David, you're right, though, 100%. I'm a big Chef guy, so I can't wait to talk him as well. Sean checking in on YouTube says Jordan Davis is on Joe MB rookie year McDonald's diet. You ain't lying, dude. I mean, my man, they knew it. They knew that was going to be a problem, right? They knew that was going to be a problem. So we shall see, man. We shall see. Joe says exactly. T. It's easier to get to a high level than stay there. Contracts and aging players are the toughest to handle. 100%, man. 100%. And that's the thing. It's oh man, it's almost like this team is always under this regime is going to have to catch lightning in a bottle. Like it's really making me think that year, that Super Bowl win was just catching lightning in a bottle, man. I feel like it was the stars aligned, everything lined up. I mean, when you think about everything that we went through that year, right? In my opinion, we won in spite of Doug. I'm not a Doug Peterson guy. Never was, never will be. Okay. So in my opinion, we won in spite of Doug. We won with a backup quarterback. We friggin' let Tom Brady throw for over 500 yards of offense, and we still won a friggin' game, saw Super Bowl, man. Like how many more stars had to align for that to happen? So again, and now maybe the biggest drawback of winning that Super Bowl was Howie Roseman thinking that, man, I got this, bro. I got this. Because if you think about it, who was their linebacker? Nigel Bradham. Listen, that wasn't the guy that was like, sign him on a 1-year deal, man. Nigel Bradham. So, in Howie's mind, he's thinking, I'm good. I know what I'm doing. So maybe we do have to catch lightning in a bottle. That's the thing. Maybe we have to catch lightning in a bottle. Rich says Jordan Davis out of shape, and he admitted it. Rich, and good for him. But the problem is, this is 2 years in a row. So how much desire does he have to change? That's what I'm curious about, right? I'm curious about that. So Javon says if they move off of AJ, the Eagles must address the wide receiver spot within the 3 rounds of the draft. The depth at Devontae was shaky. Well, here's the thing. The name Javon that I'm going to keep looking at is T. Higgins. That's the name I'm going to keep looking at, because I honestly feel that T. Higgins could come in here. He's a free agent, okay? And they're not going to pay T. Higgins in Cincinnati because they had to pay Jamar Chase. So they're in that same situation, right? So they have to let T. Higgins go. And I know T. Higgins had some health concerns, but T. Higgins is an unbelievable, big, powerful wide receiver. So I think if you were to move off of AJ and possibly get some maybe talent back in return or some draft capital, and I don't want. Can I please say that before this narrative gets out there, I'm not saying I want to trade AJ Brown. I love AJ Brown. AJ Brown is setting records, bro. Like AJ Brown, when he was on rolling this year, was the best thing I've watched in a uniform since T.O. Okay, that's who he reminded me. It was T.O. 2.0. So I don't want to trade, but I'm saying if they were to make that decision, I think they could go after a guy like T. Higgins, and I would still draft Javon in one of the. I think they have 4 picks in the first 3 rounds because they have 2 second rounders. So I would 100% draft a wide receiver, no doubt. Rich says there are coaches that can't make the jump from OC to DC to head coach. 100%, man. Well, we could do a whole show on coaches that had the opportunity, that fumbled it, and then went back and killed it again. Romeo Crennel, Jim O'Brien, right? Or Jim O'Brien, Bill O'Brien. So you got Bill O'Brien, you have Romeo Crennel, you have Wade Phillips, you have Mike Martz. Honestly, you could say this is Todd Haley. I know he was a little crazy, but he failed as a head coach. But again, was a really good offensive coordinator. So there's a lot of guys, that have failed and went back and been very good. Okay, so I do think that it's very, very possible, for Cliff Kingsbury to be the next Kyle Shanahan as a play caller. I'm that big on Cliff Kingsbury. I am. I think if Chip Kelly is not a possibility, I think you better put all your chips in, and you better go after the double K, not Kyle Kendrick, Cliff Kingsbury wagon. And I think you need to stack up against him, man. I really, really need to stack up against him. You need to get that guy. Rich says, I did, but Dean can't stay healthy. Meaning, you're right. I agree, but they feel as though that's their guys that are going to give them another chance this year. You could definitely see that's exactly what they were saying. Food says new OC and or Fangio 100%, dude. That's exactly why they're doing it. That's exactly why they're doing it. This is a total power play by the front office. I mean, I like Fangio, but it's total power play, bro. Like, I think Rivera was the guy. I think Rivera was the guy they wanted until Fangio became available. And and he just became available today. And that's why they were delayed in that press conference, because they were actually hoping to get the deal done and announce it in that press conference. But they just couldn't probably get the paperwork submitted in time and all that. So it'll come out tomorrow or the next day. It's definitely Vic Fangio. And I'm not hating it, but he's definitely going to be a guy in line to take over if Nick struggles. Cliff Kingsbury, same way. And I'm not hating it, right? I'm not hating it. The thing I'm hating is a waste of year, in my opinion. If you're already setting that up, right? So that's my thing. So why are you making all these moves and expenditures based on the fact of if Nick fails again? Isn't that just a wasted freaking year? That's what I don't understand. And that's why we have to go back to the speculation that we've all been saying, that nobody wants to coach here of any kind of merit or substance because of Howie Roseman. So there's a lot to tie into this, a whole lot, man, a whole lot. Rich says when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, Howie hit on every side. Exactly, lightning in a bottle, right? Lightning in a bottle. I mean, everything he did that year worked. Everything, everything worked. Who was the corner that Robinson, right? Like this dude wasn't even doing anything, and he signs him. Everybody thought he was done, and he has a fantastic year. I think it was Robinson, right? I can't remember the name for the life of me. But Food says hopefully the Kobe Dean is in Sidney Jones 2.0. What's another guy? Sidney Jones couldn't stay healthy, right? You're right. I hope not. But the only problem that makes me feel like he could be Foods is Dean is a history of injury, right? This goes back to his high school days. So and some of those guys, they just never shake it. Their bodies are just made to get injured. I mean, it's like, oh, injured again. Oh, injured again. It sucks. It's unfortunate, but it's just true. Joe says lightning in a bottle. Exactly. Did you catch Howie saying they study and try to get ahead of things? They admit they don't stick to what works. Got to be the smartest of all time. They admitted so much in that press conference, okay, that a lot of people have to pick up on, and that's one of them. Okay, and I'm going to bring up another one in a second, but Tommy's got a great point here, because that's why I'm saying, like, I bet you their first two picks are going to be offensive linemen. You definitely have to start thinking about life after Lane Johnson, because everybody else they put in that position blows. Terrible. Human turnstiles. Like Jack Driscoll or who the hell did they put out there? He was terrible. Like, and again, you have to protect your quarterback. So, and unfortunately, seeing what Lane went through this year with some groin and abdominal injuries, even though he's a tough guy, once Tyler Steen, there you go, there's a name. He stunk. Tyler Steen. There's another guy. Good call, Tommy. Yeah, like you can't just put these like Winston Justice kind of guys back there, man. Like, it's like you essentially are going to lose your center this year, which is the biggest piece of your offensive line. And at any time you see, with these soft tissue injuries of the abdominal area with Lane Johnson, and let's not forget Lane Johnson, credit to him, who went through a huge mental instability problem, really fought through it and got help. And I actually watched him on a podcast on resiliency, and he was amazing. And he could be a mouthpiece for a lot of people, and an advocate for a lot of people. And when I see that, I'm like, the only bad part though is at any time that could ramp up and maybe he's not available. So, we have to look at that. So you're right, Tommy. That's a good call. You have to start thinking about life after Lane Johnson. You absolutely do, man. I think he's 35, 36. I mean, listen, I keep saying that the best two, actually 3 moves, right? The best 3 moves Chip Kelly gave us was Lane Johnson, Zach Ertz, and Jeff Stalin, right? 100%. That they are the 3 things that Chip Kelly gave us, and that's what we will be forever grateful for. Forever grateful for. That's right. Juergens will likely move to center, so they'll have to work on right guard too. And Juergens missed some time with injury. You're right. They had that a pedo who actually didn't play that bad, but remember, we lost Sayamalo to Pittsburgh, who played his ass off, right? But it was a guy you couldn't pay everybody, right? So that's it, Foods. Patrick Robinson, I said Johnson. Patrick Robinson, that was the corner, had the great pick 6. He had a great year, but who the hell would have thought Patrick Robinson was? That's the kind of lightning in a bottle that we actually grabbed this Super Bowl winning year. And I think that's what we're living off of when it comes to Howie Roseman. I really do. It's crazy. So I want to bring this up. I'm going to get to this before I forget. And Nick Sirianni slips and says, I am hiring him. I want to see if anybody else caught it. Okay. I had to tell Tyrone, because I watch things from time to time. So I was watching a press conference on NBC Sports Philly, and Tyrone came back on, and I want to hear, because he was having McManus on, who I really, really like. I want to hear he had Barrett Brooks on. I want to hear what those guys had to say. So I was listening to Ricky Bo, and I was listening to Tyrone, and Ricky Bo was like, he was adamant about, like we all are, why does Nick Sirianni still have a job? He kept saying, admitting his mistakes, admitting it's we. And I said, yeah, but don't forget, there was one point in that news conference where my man Nick slipped up and showed that ego a little bit and said, he said, I am hiring him. Right? And then we're talking about offensive coordinator, and they kept pressing him about, what is he going to do? And, is he going to be involved? And what kind of culture is he going to have and scheme? And you could see him get frustrated. He said, I'm hiring him, so I'm going to know. And I was like, whoa, where did that come from? Now, all of a sudden, Nick wants to start swinging the eye around, right? So that's what made me think, okay, because remember, there were some reports that Nick was basically, it's my way or no way, right? So, and I think that statement right there proved that. Like, so, and again, it all makes sense, right? That's why Howie's talking and interjecting and taking over, and that's the fun part, man. Like, that's the fun part, to be able to watch it unfold. It's exactly what we thought, right? It's exactly. So I think Sirianni's slipping and saying, I'm hiring him. If anybody's seen that or saw that, I think that 100% buys into that narrative of specifically saying that he does have a power play sometimes. And I think, honestly, that may come from knowing that, okay, I really can't control much else, but whatever I can control, I'm going to control. And I'm going to make it known I can control. And I think that's what we're seeing right there. I do. Food just named some stiff offensive lineman. Danny Watkins, the fireman, and Antone Davis. That's the Ray Rhodes years, man. Antone Davis going back. Wow, man. That's remember when we brought in Sean Andrews' brother, Stacy Andrews from Cincinnati. Man, we had some really, really bad plays, man. Really bad plays. Rich says, if Nick says I'm hiring the OC, that gives Howie the out of firing if they go bad the first couple of games next year. You're right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's putting the onus, on him. I mean, that's another good call. That's why I love the engagement from everybody here, man. Like, this is just a conversation. It's like, let's just have a talk, because I didn't even think about that by him. He could have forcefully said that, right, Rich? I mean, he could have told Nick, because they were trying to get on the same page before they went out there. He could have told Nick, yo, you make it known that you're hiring this guy, right? You make it known that you're hiring this guy. So when it does go bad, I'm going to put the accountability on you, and you're out, and you're the scapegoat. So it's very interesting. Like Food said, like Doug, Nick will be the sacrificial lamb. My man Tommy checking in again says this might be a crazy. Let me tell you something, Tommy. Nothing is crazy, man. That's one thing. If you're listening to this program, I'm not that guy that's going to call you a dope or an idiot or anything like that, man. Like, we're all crazy in our own mind sometimes, man. Like, I just enjoy going back and forth and understanding certain things. I used to get crazy with people. I did. I'm not doing that anymore. Like, I just want to have a great conversation. That's what we're doing. And Tommy says this might be a crazy remark to say, but did AJ Brown save Nick's job when he had his press conference after not speaking, saying things like, we have Nick's back? He very well could have. Like, maybe he was getting wind of some things. Maybe some things were leaking within the locker room. Right? Maybe his relationship with Jalen, maybe Jalen was like, look, man, if you keep this going, they're going to out Nick. And we don't want that right now. So I think maybe you need to go out there and, do your thing. And so you're right. I don't think that's crazy at all, Tommy. Not at all. I think that 100% could have been the case. 100%. I mean, I don't ever remember them axing anybody like, mid-season. If they did, let me know. I don't remember, but I don't think they would have done it. But I think it would have changed the narrative a little bit and their logic at the end of the year, especially with this monumental collapse. Definitely think that. See, I love it. Yeah, exactly. See, yep, you noticed it. See, Joe's watching just like I was waiting for that slip up, and he slipped, and he only did it one time, Joe. He only did it one time, and that one time I was like, there it is. I knew, because that's the problem, or I shouldn't say the problem. That I think that's the great thing about these live conferences, right? Because you're going to show your true colors. That's why I always say, I'm a very transparent guy, and I keep everything in perspective, but I keep everything transparent, man, because I don't want to slip up. Like, there's nothing for me to slip up with. Like, this is who I am. And I knew he was going to slip. And Joe says also, after he said about the defensive meetings, yep, how he jumped. It's like, I'll answer some now. That wasn't to get off of Nick. Like, I saw a couple people on Twitter go, oh, he's helping Nick out to give him a break. No, he wasn't. That was like, yo, Nick, shut the F up right now. I'm taking over, because you are way off base. That's what that was. Howie was like, I need to talk and save this conversation, because you never know what Nick Webb, blah, 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 blah. That's all. Like, he's constantly bumbling, blah, 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 blah. And he says the same thing and talks in circles. And oh my God, man, this has been a rough day. This has been a rough day. It really has. It sucks so much, man. I'm gonna be honest. Like, this full transparency, this sucks. We shouldn't be doing this right now, man. Like, how are we not playing this weekend, fellas? Like, I just can't believe it. I'm so distraught. I really am. Like I'm trying to be like objective and positive, but it just sucks, man. Like I was crushed when the Phillies lost. I really was, and I was crushed when the Sixers lost. I tell everybody, like I gave up my season tickets. I was crushed, man. I was like, I'm done. I just spent so much energy. And when that team went out there against Boston and acted like they could give two shits and gave up and quit because that's what they did, I was like, bro, there's no more of this, man. No more hopping on 95 and dealing with traffic and getting 3 hours to get down to a stadium and then watch the game and come back and be rah rah rah. We love this team and they're the best and blah, 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 and then they don't show up in the playoffs. I'm like, I'm just not doing it anymore, man. Like I'm just so ass out. And honestly, with this, it's tiring. It is, man. I thought we were past this. I really did. Like, I'm not going to bring up his name, but we went through it once, and now we're going through it again. And I do think there is some stuff to the media feeding into the monster too. I do. I think that if this kind of stuff happens in Jacksonville, nobody even gives a shit, man. Like nobody even gives a shit. Like, it's funny. Like if this happens in another town that the media sucks, it's not happening. Like this conversation's not happening. Nobody's talking about trading Jalen Hurts. Like think about that. Like here's my think about Jalen Hurts, hero to villain, in literally like a 6-month span. Like Jalen Hurts was everybody's hero, and he went to the villain that quick. Like, really? Like, I'm not saying like for us here on this show, but like this the narrative, the perspective of everybody. Just like what, like people like, how can we treat you? Got that knucklehead Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk coming out about like, oh yeah, well if they want to move on from what? Stop spewing that shit, man. Like, come on. Like, like, why are we even talking about that? Like, why? Why are we even talking about that? And that's the stuff that frustrates me. That's the stuff that makes you get crazy because it's so stupid. It really is, man. If you literally think that we're gonna trade Jalen Hurts now because of this, you got to be an idiot. Like, yep, you're right, Javon. That story on Bleeding Green Nation started off the pot with the Hurts narrative. I will not only started, they just power Here we go. I'm on my phone. Can you guys hear me? I think my internet went out while we were talking, and I can only get on my 4 or 5G or whatever it is. So I didn't even realize it was still live. I was trying to get back on, but um, yeah, I'm sorry. I want to get to a lot of these comments. Um, Man, when the internet goes out, it really sucks. Let me tell you that. It really, really sucks. If anybody's still on here, let me know if you can hear me because I'm not sure. Never done this on my phone, and I don't know how good it's going to be. But no, I think I am good. I think I am good. But listen, yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, Rich, my internet just completely crashed, dude. It's crazy. We were just getting in a good flow too. Like we were just getting in a good flow. We had a lot of shit going on. I was hoping I was going to get to 1 a.m. tonight, but I'll cut this short now because it's the pain hole in my phone and trying to talk. Hopefully Verizon gets this clear up by the morning, man. But like for everybody that was watching, man, I appreciate it. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but Um, we'll continue tomorrow night. We'll continue this discussion, man. So we'll continue this discussion, and man, as always, HRS Late Nights, man. Heat Ratio Sports. You guys are amazing. We're gonna keep this going, have some fun, and everybody have a great day tomorrow. And I'll catch you back here 11 p.m. tomorrow night. All right, see you guys.